So I chose to do a presentation on the music of Sweet Home Alabama. So Sweet Home Alabama is about a girl named Melanie Carmichael. She's a fashion designer in New York whose career is taking off. She just got proposed to by the son of New York's mayor. Everything seems awesome. However, her divorce from her high school sweetheart Jake never went through because he refused to sign the divorce papers. So the majority of this movie is about Melanie returning home, and we find out that she's actually Melanie Smuter, not Melanie Carmichael, and she was born to a Hick family from Pigeon Creek, not one of the wealthiest families of Greenville. Melanie confronts her past while trying to look forward to a future in New York, but her ties to Alabama run deep. Okay, so my central claim of the music in Sweet Home Alabama is about the diegetic and non-diegetic aspects. So there are popular and orchestral sounds used, which plays a factor in obviously what we hear and what it means. But really, the use of diegetic and non-diegetic music is what makes the film have an extra layer to it. So the diegetic music establishes where Melanie is physically. Um, it has to do with the sounds that we hear being played around her and what's where she is, right? But the non-diegetic music that we hear actually guides us through Melanie's emotional journey. So my first cue comes from when Andrew is proposing to Melanie and Tiffany's. The music in this scene is non-diegetic, so it's what Melanie is feeling emotionally, right? Um, it's this orchestral, classy sound that really ties to New York and really establishes this persona of Melanie Carmichael. Um, it's this fairy tale feel, and it's really amazing, but the dialogue of Melanie being hesitant of this proposal really kind of makes us think that maybe it's not all that she wants, and maybe it's not exactly where she thinks she belongs. So again, obviously, this is just music that it's non-diegetic. Not Kate, excuse me. Melanie is really feeling this New York sense. It's this really pristine orchestral music, and because it's non-diegetic, that's what she's feeling. And I think that's just really interesting, and we think about because she's very, very New York focused right now. Keep that in mind. Now, my second cue is a little mixed up. It's a little different than the last one. It is going to be diegetic music that is being played while Melanie arrives at the bar in town. So she had just talked to Jake about some life things, and she ends up following him to the bar because he had a quote unquote hot date, which was an excuse for him not to sign the papers. So while she's walking in, Andrew calls her and he could hear this diegetic music being played, and he's like, "What on earth is that?" And she calls it the sound of her past, which obviously this music is thumping, it's twangy, there's the band playing it with the guy singing and the two girls as well. It's almost an attack on her New York identity. Um, it's very much so the opposite of that music that we heard in Tiffany's. However, keep in mind this is diegetic, so it's not what she's feeling, it's where she is physically, it's what she's hearing. So my third cue is going to be from a scene when Melanie is visiting the Coondog Cemetery to visit Bear. Bear was her and Jake's dog that passed away while she was in New York. Actually, Jake sees her walking in here and decides to go and talk. Um, and obviously, while this is occurring, we hear this music. And the music is non diegetic, so it's obviously, right? It's what Melanie is feeling in this moment. And it's no longer just this orchestral music that we would think of New York when we hear it. It's not this classy stuff, right? It is still kind of soft orchestral, but it has this almost blues sound to it. It's got this little, not quite a twang, but it's getting there, right? And so it really shows that, she's no longer just a New York girl. She's starting to feel like an Alabama girl again. And during this scene, we have some dialogue that overplays, that kind of really fits with what's going on in the music, right? The music is showing that she's no longer just New York or Alabama. She's kind of both, but she's struggling to realize this, and we kind of hear that, maybe it's okay to be both.
I'm happy in New York, Jake. But then I come down here and this fits too.
Since when does it have to be one or the other? You can't have roots and wings, Mel.
Maybe I could just fly south for the winter. I'm happy in New York, Jake. But then I come down here and this fits too.
Since when does it have to be one or the other? You can't have roots and wings, Mel.
When she was back at the farm, right? It's almost like a combination.
Maybe I could just fly south for the winter.
Because it's kind of like this song that has like these instruments that we think more country rocky, right? There's that little bit of a guitar strum. It's no longer just one or the other. She's beginning to grow into this identity of, well, maybe she's both. And I think that music really shows it here, and it's overlaid when Jake says, why does it have to be one or the other? You can have roots and wings, right? That's just a beautiful correlation between the music and the dialogue in this moment. Okay, so I think this is going to make a little bit more sense if I show the clip.
Nobody talks to my mama like that.
Praise the Lord, the South has risen again.
So to break down what happened in that scene, basically we find out Melanie never signed the divorce papers from Jake as she's walking up the aisle. She goes to sign them and realizes, you know what, I don't want to. So Andrew, being a cool guy, he was like, wow, okay. Oh well. Well, his mother was not so keen on it and ended up chewing Melanie out. Melanie's mom said, hey, she made her peace. But then Andrew's mother told Melanie's mom to go back to her double wide and fry something. Well, then obviously we saw Melanie punched her, and that was that. So the music in this scene is non-diegetic, so it's what Melanie's feeling. What's interesting about that is, up until this point in the movie, the closest we've gotten to what Melanie's feeling being this twangy sound was in the cemetery. Well, it was still pretty orchestral. It just wasn't really fully with orchestral instruments. In this scene, it's full-on country twanging, bouncing. It's got all those sounds going to it, and so that's what Melanie's feeling, and that's really interesting to see, because she's clearly made this massive evolution from this New York girl into this back to Alabama girl that's accepted her roots. So what does all of this music mean in relation to the movie? Well, basically, the movie uses diegetic and non-diegetic music to show A, where Melanie is physically, and B, where she is and what she's feeling emotionally. And the film really does a really good job of doing that. And, that non-diegetic music, it really gave us a good clue of what Melanie was feeling before things really even happened. And I think that's awesome. And it showed us that, she's not just a New York or Alabama girl. The music did a really good job of that. I think that's a job well done.